Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Thursday. It is June 11th, and what a trading day. I don't even know where to start. So many trades here, so many shorts. We don't get many days like this, so when you get a day like this, just trade it. I mean, you really could almost sell anywhere and just hang on and let it ride. I mean, we don't get a lot of downtrends like this. And it really was two measured moves. I mean, first off, you want to measure today's measured move, which was this move right here, and then the second leg started, and we actually bounced right in there early. But when we kept going, you got to go to the next one, which would be this whole leg here, as you can see right there. And then if you drag it down, you can see we really traded right down to that and found support. So that would have been a great target. Both of them would have been a great target. And it's funny too that we don't get many days where there's a chance of a circuit breaker being tripped and then halting trading. And I just talked, a trader asked me about the other day, and I said, oh, don't worry about it. I've only seen a handful of those in years of trading. And then lo and behold, a couple of days later, out of the blue, when things were really getting quiet, we get a day where they doubled the margin today from 400 to 800, and circuit breakers were announced. So circuit breaker levels were announced. I did get an email. You should get an email or some kind of notice from your broker. Hopefully they'll kind of give you those numbers or tell you where to expect that to happen at. And just be careful. You don't want to get stuck going short right at the lows where a circuit breaker is, because they're not going to let prices go any lower for a certain period of time. They're going to actually halt trading. So just be careful about that. It's not something you worry about very often, but when the announcements come out and they're telling you there's a chance the circuit breakers will be tripped, you got to pay attention. So, and you don't want to be buying this market period. I mean, there's no way you'd want to buy it. You might have looked for a buy in here. I didn't mark but a couple. But other than that, once we started lower again and mostly down through here, there's nothing you want to buy in here. Nothing. So don't be trying to buy any of this. I don't care how strong a little rally is. Don't buy. Wait for it to come back to the trend line and get short again. And you can see if you'd have just got short at that trend line every time we came back to it down through there, it was easy trading. And there's another shorter term brown channel in there, and it had a few off that trend line. Really, from this afternoon, all I marked was second entries with the trend, with good setups, and setups at the trend line or lower highs right afterwards. So if I saw either one of those, I marked them if they were good setups. So I'm going to try to get going on this. I did want to say one other thing. I did update. I've been getting a lot of new questions about the NewsGuard that I talked about yesterday. So there's a post on the website that's some alternative ideas. That post is free for anybody to read, and anybody can follow some of those links and stuff. So there's some alternative ideas. If you don't have NinjaTrader version 7, I think some more people have come back and posted a link to where you can find a NewsGuard for NT8 in those comments on that same post. So go find that post if you're interested in ways to find the news. And also, since I'm talking about it, made me think about news. Somebody asked me about the website. I've got a link up in one of the over on the side pages that takes you to current news. And for some reason, not every one of the links, if you open them, it was news from 2018. So I don't know what happened. I just reset that page, and now it seems to be working. So if you've been checking out our news page, now understand that news page is not the same as news, like market announcements for big news items that come out, like the FOMC announcements. That's not what that's about. That's just basically market news. If you want to pick up some market news or find out because a lot of times, you'll see something crazy happening. It's usually because of some news item or rumor or something somebody put out. And if it's a good spot to go look see if you see something like that. If you just want to see the market commentary and news, there's lots of good links on that page. So, uh, and that's just called Mark. I think it's called, the link's called Market News, but you'll see it. It's just in one of the sections on the side page there. And so, well, actually, that one may be, I can't remember if it's the top of the page, but you'll find the link. Just look around. There's a lot of links there that people are missing. And I want to get to this chart lesson, but I want to say this again. It's amazing how many people don't know that I have all the video lessons categorized now by category. And if you go to the video lessons link at the top of the page and look in there, there's a free section, and there's one that categorizes all the free articles, which there's something about everything there that's free. I don't charge for everything. And then there's the one in the premium section. You have to be a member. But if you click on that link and follow it, the topics are categorized with a link to all of them, so it makes it real easy to find what you're looking for. If you're looking for stuff on second entries or trends or whatever, go to find that category, and then everything that's into that category will be listed there, and you just click on the link, it takes you straight to it. So every time I point that out to somebody, they say, I didn't even know that's there. So there's a lot of stuff on the site, and most of it's free. So if you hadn't had a chance, go there and dig around and look at some of that stuff, because you're probably missing out on some good stuff. So I just thought I would mention that. But go there and look around, dig through the stuff. Don't just, make sure you look at everything, because there's a lot of stuff there that's helpful that people don't even know it's there, because they're just not taking the time to look around, or maybe they didn't realize what it was. So just click on the links and look at some of it. If it's not helpful or anything you're interested in, at least you had a chance to look at it. And I bet you'll find something that you'll say, hey, I didn't know this was here. I wish I'd have known it was here a long time ago. But anyway, I showed you the two measured moves, and there's basically just two. You had the first trend down that actually started yesterday afternoon, and then we just went flat here for a little bit, but there was no surprise. When you start to make these lower highs here, we couldn't get back up to the high of this little range. That's generally a sign that, hey, we're losing momentum and we're probably going to sell off. And once we did, look for that first leg, which we bounced just a hair early there. And then it continued on to complete this whole leg. And you can see we went right to it and went just a little bit lower because it was such a strong sell-off. That's no surprise. And there's probably lots of other trades in here that I didn't even mark. And notice there's a big downtrend right here, but I just did on my chart. I didn't have any really good setups in there, so I just didn't mark them. Doesn't mean that you might not have had some other trades in here. So if you see a trade, or if you took a trade that you thought met the rules and I didn't mark it, it doesn't mean that it's not a good trade. There's just too many trades there to mark. So I just marked the ones that were sure things that were easy to spot. So I'm going to try to talk about each one of them, and I may just run through those last few. I'll explain kind of how I marked those last few. But let's back out here where we can see it. You got to get way out of here to see this thing. But we had the bigger two-tiered channel working down, and then within that we had this one, and that's where the 7 o'clock came right in here. And you got on this second entry. Notice that low, first entry, second entry. And so right out of the gate, just barely into 7 o'clock, you got a second entry short and a strong downtrend. And if you caught this one move, depending on how you manage your runner, you might have caught a runner on that. And you might have ridden this thing all the way to the low here till we found support. And that's 15 points right there. That might have been the only trade you needed today. I mean, again, if you're still around when you get that big sell-off for the second leg, you probably still want to trade it. But, if you caught this first move and had a runner and just only had one runner and 15 points, if your target's usually a couple of points a day, and you already got 15, well, then take your money and go enjoy your day or whatever. But because you don't know this trend's coming, but if you're still here, you probably want to trade this thing. So, but anyway, we get a little close outside. That's not really enough to say, hey, that's convincing, but we get another close outside here, and then we make a new low, but still we got another great second entry short right off the EMA, and then a lower high again, and you still got room to get out. But when it bounces here now you got to be careful. You can tell we're just kind of working sideways here, and there's a little bit of a range. I don't see anything else here I like, and then we bounce, and you don't have enough you don't have enough evidence here that this is a good place to sell. It is a resistance area from earlier, but you got this trend line working up. There is an overshoot. I don't have the other side on here, so that might be a reason you might take that trade. You can see that little channel and you get the overshoot, and we're so far away from the EMA. But I'm going to tell you, a lot of times you'll break lower here and push up again a time or two and then sell off. So it's just kind of risky, and I think you're better off to just, even though you see that go without you, if you didn't take this trade, that's okay. Don't beat yourself up because there's just not a great setup there. And so sometimes you'll see really nice moves like that are not great setups, and people let that bother them, and then the next time they'll say, I'm taking that trade. I know what it did last time. And guess what? The next time it breaks lower and turns up and stops you out and then goes where you think it does. So if you didn't take this trade, you did the right thing, and it's no big deal that it took off, because just a few minutes later you get a second entry short right here and get another nice entry. Notice that new low. That low's lower than that one. So first entry, and it goes up, second entry. And if you draw your little short-term trend line right there, you can see you get this move outside, closes outside, and all in one bar. Really you could call that a break. I mean, you traded way down here and you closed right back there at the trend line, but that's a second entry. After one big leg down, you're probably going to you may get a matching one. So with a nice second entry right there, I'm going to take it. That would be your target right back to the bottom. And you do get a little break lower. There's a trap. I didn't mark this trade, but that's one you might have taken because that's pretty clear support across there now. And so you may take that trade. I didn't mark it. We'll talk about it when we get to it. I'll go ahead and put the little, meant to come back and put that down there anyway, but it took me so long to get all the other trades in there, I forgot about it by that time. But anyway, second entry short there, and then you come back and you test that again. So now you tested it once, you tested it twice, you got your double test there, nice bearish bar. There's a little bit of congestion there, but we're just kind of going sideways, and we're bouncing back and forth. You got plenty of room there. That's a quick, easy trade. Then you come back and you make a lower high here. If you didn't already have that, if it wasn't making a little double top right there, I probably wouldn't take that. Actually, you would move this down to here by that point, because now all your closes are down here, and so it actually breaks higher and turns down. You just have to have enough room to get out here. So you got to take that into account. If you don't, you'd have to drop a limit order when it broke lower, which you could have, and you could have still got in this way back up here. So you could have easily dropped a limit order and had enough room to get out of that trade. So, and it runs down. And actually, if you took the measured leg from there, it's a perfect measured leg. But really, it's generally going to be from that higher point. Sometimes it's from this next lower point where the downtrend really starts back again. Still gets you in the right ballpark either way you do it. So, and then we talked about this. You don't want to buy here on the, this is why you don't buy the first bounce. Generally, you want to wait on a higher low or something like that, because if you enter right there, which looks like a pretty good place to enter, you get stopped out, and then it stops you out, and then it goes exactly where you thought it was going to go. So on the failed breakout, you might enter there, being that far away from the EMA. Plus, that's a second entry long. Notice this double top, first entry, second entry. Remember, a double top, you can count it either way. First entry or a new high. And in this case, that's one leg down, or second leg down at equal leg. So I'm going to count that as one move down off that high. So first entry, and then there's your second attempt to go lower. So second entry long. There's a higher low here, but you're back inside this little resistance area. It actually breaks out and pulls back. And notice that's what a breakout pullback looks like. You've got resistance here, and then it breaks through and comes back, and it holds the support now. That's a breakout pullback. Coming back inside here is not a breakout pullback, even if it does go higher. Breakout pullback comes back and tests previous resistance and it acts as support, or it breaks down here and tests previous resistance or previous support and it acts as a resistance. That's what we mean by breakout pullback. So if this was on the other side of the EMA, I would have probably marked this trade because it looks like a reversal pattern. And you still might could argue for it to be green. I really hate to mark it because we do have our 2 legs down and it is a little bit of a breakout pullback, but you got to go long right into that EMA. I'd prefer to see that on the other side. Then I would have marked that blue, and you see what it did. It's a reversal pattern. It's not a perfect one, but it's still somewhat of a reversal pattern. Then we come back here. There's a hidden second entry in there, but I'm not even going to talk about that. We'd be better off to wait. In this case, this is where you want to wait on a higher low or a trap or something. And notice that low. That's a new swing low. It's lower than that one. So you get a first entry, a second entry, and we're not back to the highs yet. And that's a relatively bullish bar. And that is a second entry long. It makes a double top, so that's a new high. First entry, second entry. So you got a second entry long, a failed second entry short. It's the first break of your trend line, and you're probably headed up here and you don't have a new high yet. There's a lot of reasons to go long right there. That's why that one's marked. And off it goes. And then we test the high up here. Now you got 2 tests. You've tested it once, so now you got once, and you really didn't get back up there, but there's that trend line would be right there, or that resistance line's right there. So you made this high, and you tested it a bunch of times, and you might consider going short there, but generally I think you should wait on that lower high. I didn't mark that one, but you could argue for it. Let's just mark it green. Your lower high came here and off it goes. And you had a little 2-legged correct, 2 legs back there. There's a lower high right here, but it does break higher and turn down, but that's the first break of this trend line working up. You would expect to maybe get a second leg down, but you really need some more evidence that it's going lower, and you make a failed second entry long here, and you actually get another second entry short. And look how bearish that is. That's the better place to go short. It looked like you were going to get a lower high here, but that ends as a doji. You can't use it. It does make a failed second entry long even right here, and but I didn't mark that one either because you're having to go long or short right down here where you got some previous support. It's not as important, but we hadn't pushed through there. We actually were bouncing higher, so I think you're better off to wait. And then notice it comes back, makes one more push, and then it bounces down here. But that's too congestive. I mean, that's another one you could argue for to at least be green, but I didn't mark any of those. And you run up and get a first entry and then a second entry, and it confirms that trend line down through there. Nice bearish bar, relatively small. That's a good place to go short. And then it comes back and makes a failed second entry long right at the key entry point again and turns back down again. So you could actually get in here or add on or whatever. And off it goes. And if you catch that one trade, you wouldn't have got a runner on this one, but you would have here. If you catch that one trade, you can ride this all the way down. There's another little second entry short there, but not a very good signal bar on my chart. If you had a better signal bar right there off that key entry point. And I drew this off the lows here and drug it up. It fits perfect. There's actually a lower high here. And that's starting to look like a strong trend because you can see all the little bars and stems. That's what a strong trend looks like. So you may take that trade right there if you have a really good signal bar. That's just not it's almost neutral on my chart. So it's still bearish, but it's not bearish enough in my opinion. We just keep moving down. Then you make a new low, first entry, second entry short, another move down. And you're running back. There's actually a second entry short here, but I don't get a very good signal bar. Notice that low, first entry. Actually, the second entry is right there. You wouldn't want to enter that one with all that congestion above the EMA because that's what happens to you right there. and we are back in the upper half, so you would expect coming off here a few times, we're probably going to try to get back up to here. And when we don't, and this thing starts down, that's a good sign that, hey, this thing's weak because we couldn't even get back to the trend line. So I don't really see a setup there. If you draw your trend line off those first two, you can see that. And you just don't really get a good setup. If you draw the other side, you'd see it lost a little momentum right there. But that's not good enough, not being back to that trend line. I think you're better off just to sit tight. And this is what I was talking about earlier from a little higher distance. I just don't really get a setup all the way down through here. That's too bullish. There's your signal bar. This one's a possibility, but you've already had your break now and a new low, although sometimes you do get two legs down. It's just not a great setup. And so why risk it? Just wait. And then we just start going sideways. And again, we come over here and we get this failed breakout. And that's what I drew this secondary trend line off of. You actually could have taken this trade. It actually breaks higher and turns down. And so you could have gone short. You got enough room to get out. I didn't mark it, but I probably should have. And you really could have taken that one as well, because you've turned down there enough times that you might even take that trade. And it would have been a winner just by the skin of your teeth. But make a lower high here, but not a very good signal bar. And again, I just don't get a good setup all the way down here. It's terrible. And if you measured that leg, you know where you're probably headed. There's your first move down. And you see we went much further than that before it revert, before you got a good correction. But that would have given you a good target. But notice here, you can make a new low and you get a first entry and then a second entry, and you got a good signal bar there. And you still got plenty of room down to this target. And this thing has just been terribly weak. And there's actually a new, I don't have this on there either, but there's another little trend line working down through there. Or trend channel, I should say. It's a little flatter than that. There it is right there. You can see that. And we get the break. And so we're looking for a new low there. And we're looking for a measured move. But we get a little more than that. And then it bounces. But again, I wouldn't be looking to buy here. There's a second entry short right there. Notice that low, first entry, second entry. But my bar's not good enough. But if you had a good signal bar, you might go short. But if you wait on the lower high right here, just go short and look at it go. There's actually a failed second entry long right there. It broke higher and turned and went back down. And then it comes back and you get your first break. But that's a little congestion. That's like a little failed break out of congestion. So you're just trading the failed breakout with the trend. It's right off the EMA too. That's a nice move. Look at it go. And you get a couple of swings here, but I just don't see anything I really like. There's a lower high. I mean, this is a higher low than this one, so it's a failed second entry long, but you're right down here at this brown trend line. You've already had an overshoot, so there's a possibility, but you got a break here, so, and now you're right into that trend channel. I think you're just better off to wait. And notice it doesn't go far before we're headed in the other direction. And I just don't see any. I just think it's too dangerous to go long here. There is a long right here. If you draw your little support resistance lines. There's a failed breakout here, but notice you don't have much room. And notice it doesn't go very far. And there's a chance to go long here, but you don't have enough room. But finally, you get enough room here, but the problem is that's an inside bar, and a lot of times they're not very reliable. You'll see them work like this a lot, but my opinion is if it's an inside bar, unless it has a matching low or a matching high, if you're going short, just skip them, because they'll fail a lot on you. This one doesn't, and there's another breakout pullback long. Notice how that pushes through the resistance and pulls back and tests it and then goes up. That's a breakout pullback long. There's also another second entry long here, but we've already had a break and a new high. And even though we're not back to the trend line, we could turn down right there. So I don't think you want to go long there. And notice what happens. You touch the trend line and then you make a lower high. It actually breaks higher, turns, just goes short right there. Make a new low. First entry, second entry. Look at that big bearish bar right at the EMA. Boom, off it goes. There's a failed second entry long right there. It actually broke higher and turned down. A big engulfing bar. It's a possibility, but from this point on, I just marked off the trend line or lower highs if you didn't get a good setup off the trend line. Because that's all you needed. If you just waited on those, you couldn't hardly go wrong. But there's a new low right there, so it's lower than that one. So first entry, so that's a second entry long. But that trend line is so well proven down through there. We've turned down off of it so many times. You can't, that far away from the EMA, just take that trade. Yeah, it's a first entry, but this is a strong trend day. There's another second entry short right here, but that bar is too bullish. Then we come back again. I marked this one because it's a second entry short. Notice that new low, first entry, second entry, big bearish bar. Get just enough to get out of there, and then actually I think there's a couple points in there, and it goes higher again. And then you get another setup right at the trend line. And it broke higher again and turned down. Another engulfing bar. The first entry, and there's a second entry, and it right off that key entry point. So I wouldn't have a problem going short there. And here's another second entry. First entry, and then it went higher and turned back down, but that bar is too bullish. And really, I didn't mark anything else here. There was actually a nice short right here. Notice that low, first entry, and then it broke higher and turned back down. That's a higher low. I marked one like this yesterday, and I got a lot of questions. People couldn't figure out why it's a second entry. But notice that low, and you break lower, and you're working lower. And then you get a higher low. That's a correction. And this went higher and turned down and went past it all in one bar. So it's still a second entry short. It's a little more hard. It's a little harder to see and a little more complicated, but it's a second entry short. And the legs would be like so. There's a leg up, a leg down, and another leg up. So you can see the two-legged correction there, and then the trend starts lower again. Doesn't go very far, but it goes. That's further than you think it is because the prices, the pattern's so big today. I mean, that's probably 3,000. That's probably 6 points right there. Doesn't look like it because the chart's so big, but you could have taken that short right there. Again, I didn't mark it. I was just marking the easy, sure things today because there's so many trades. But there's a bunch more in here you could take if you really wanted to. But we just didn't have time to go over them all. But there it is again, big picture. This little light line, which you may not can see very well, that's where the day started in the overnight yesterday afternoon. And you got one leg, and then there's really a two-legged correction right there. Can you see there's a leg up, and then a little double correction, then a second leg up. And that's usually the center of the pattern. So once you started headed lower, measure this bigger leg, drag it down, and where does it give you a target? And look where we went, right to it, and couldn't go any lower. So I don't know if the circuit breakers ever tripped or not because I wasn't trading by that time, and I wasn't paying that much attention to it. I was trying to catch up on a few emails by that time. So I'm not sure if any of the circuit breakers ever tripped or not, but we couldn't get lower than that support level right there. So anyway, I'm going to finish this in less than 30 minutes, which is better than what I thought I would do, considering I took 4, 5, or 6, 7 minutes there at the beginning, so I didn't do too bad considering how many trades. I know I rushed through them, but with just so many of them, it's just a huge downtrend day, and you just about could throw a dart at. This is one day you might throw darts at a board and get lucky if you're trading with the trend. So, but let's don't do that. I'm gonna wrap it up. Tomorrow's Friday, so probably no chart lesson on Friday. I may put something up for Saturday morning or whatever if I have a little extra time. We'll see. Since I didn't. Anyway, we'll see. I hadn't been doing anything on Fridays, and I generally like to get out here, and the weather is supposed to be nice. So I may leave early. If not, I might put something up. But I'm going to wrap this up before it gets any longer. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.